And we're back.
Welcome to No Direction, the Pathfinder News, Reviews, and Interviews podcast. I'm Ryan Costello.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perrin.
As I said, we are the Pathfinder News, Reviews, and Interviews podcast. And today, some of the biggest Pathfinder news that we've had dropped in a long time landed in our lap. And we've been collecting as much information as we can about it. That is, of course, Pathfinder Kingmaker from Owlcat Games, which we will be talking about in the news segment. But we've only got kind of scraps of information for now, because they've already said that this was the pre-announcement, and they'll be giving us more information at PaizoCon. Now, speaking of PaizoCon, we have somebody who is very important to PaizoCon joining us in our interview segment this episode. PaizoCon wouldn't exist without this man, and one of his other responsibilities is Wayfinder, and Wayfinder wouldn't exist without PaizoCon. So, in many ways, he has set the bar for what a Paizo volunteer should be. Like, what Paizo volunteers should aspire to be. He is one of the most active members in the Paizo and Pathfinder community. He is Mr. Tim Nightengale.
Howdy, folks.
Hey, Tim.
Hey.
Excellent. It's good to have you on the show.
My fellow volunteers.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
The small club.
But growing every year.
It is.
I'm
looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing who wins this year.
We should get jackets made, and then whenever somebody gets a volunteer of the year is on the show, we're all wearing our jackets.
Oh,
purple jacket,
which would be terrible today. It's
purple,
super
yes.
humid where I am.
The reason that I am basically a lot more red than usual is I just spent all day on a golf course filming for my day job, and I'm sunburned like from head to toe because, you know, outside in the sun and sunburn and UV rays are things that I usually forget exist because of my office job.
Yeah, that is definitely one of the gamer stereotypes that I adhere to. I do not like the sun. I do not like sweating. I try and avoid that whole mess.
Yeah.
All right, so instead of jackets, we'll just get giant pins.
Well, we could just like put a thing around the plaque. Just wear that on.
Could.
Yeah.
No, maybe. All right, we're too inside baseball at this point.
In chat, D20 Film Guy, he's questioning my saying that you set the bar for volunteers. He says you set the immovable rod.
Oh, God.
So, Tim, for those of you, for those in the chat that may not be familiar with you, why are you such a big deal?
I have no idea.
Come on.
So, I'm friends with a lot of people at Paizo. I kind of had mutual friends. I got invited to the game, Jason Bowman's office game when he was running Eberron. So I kind of got myself fell into an actual gaming group with real developers and stuff. And so being on the Paizo message boards, we had a lot of it was a pretty big community back then, in around 2008, 2009, and just very tight knit. Everybody kind of knew everybody, but we didn't know each other at all. I mean, none of us had ever met. I even at that point had only met Liz on the message boards and playing an online game called Hellgate London. So we were basically, none of us had met each other, and this new app or website called Meetup had just come up, and somebody said, hey, we should have a meetup, and we could all meet and do stuff. And then I proceeded to watch that entire thread, have everybody talk about bringing it to their hometown, to where they lived. And we were all over the country, so it was kind of this, well, okay, this isn't really going to happen because nobody wants to go to Kansas City to meet other, what's the draw? And so I actually remember sitting down with Mike McArthur, who has passed away a year or so ago. And I said, hey, there's some people on the message boards that actually want to meet. What would you do if I said we should have it here? Do you think Paizo would actually show up and talk to us and maybe run some games or something? And he's like, oh yeah, I think so. So we went back to the pit, the editorial pit, and I broke it to everybody, and it was kind of an overwhelming, yeah, we could do that. So I ended up going and telling the group, hey, if you have it in Seattle, I can bring Paizo to this meetup. And it kind of happened that way. It all kind of fell into place. The entire company seemed to have shown up. Watsy crashed it. It was really cool. And then it was so cool that Paizo decided that they really wanted to do that themselves. So they came and asked me, can we just run this ourselves? We'll just take it over from you. And I'm like, okay, yes, do that. This is great. So, so this is the 10th year, if you count that first one that I ran with Liz Quartz.
You have to count that one.
Yes. Well, they don't. I mean, sometimes I don't know if, they don't ever have PaizoCon, what is that, 2008? They always have 2009, and they refer to the PaizoCons that they have run. So it's kind of this loose 9 or 10 years sort of thing. I mean, they do recognize that there's been 10 of them, but there's
and
been
you're recognized as the founder.
Well, yeah. Mm-hmm. I recognize I am a co-founder, actually. Liz Quartz really did help out a lot. I mean, there was no programming until she stepped in and said, we have to do something. So, sure, okay, Liz. And she did a lot of the interviews, of the staff and stuff, so that was really cool. So, I'm kind of known for that. Mm-hmm. And then when Liz started to work for Paizo, she was actually running this Wayfinder magazine. This was the brainchild of Hugo Solis, who came to me when I was actually publicly supposed to be running the second PaizoCon. And I hadn't told anybody that Paizo was taking it over because they told me not to until they did a public announcement. So we were waiting. And he hit me on the non-official chat room and said, I want to do this thing, and I thought it would be like a program, like part of the program guide we could make, but it would be like a magazine with, like a fanzine of some sort, and I really want to do this. And I was like, I don't know if we need that, but hey, Liz, I know Liz, and she does this fan magazine. Maybe you should talk to her. So they started that, and then when Liz went to work for Paizo, she could no longer run it. So she kind of tricked me into starting to be the editor. I really had no idea. I started with number 5, and I was kind of out of my depth. But we managed to get through that, and then 6, and then we just kept going. So this will be my 13th issue running this
the show, one that just had a call for submission.
No, that'll be the 14th one. So I've done 13 with the one that we're going to be handing out.
Okay, excellent.
So 5 through. I started with 5 and we're up to 17 with a call for 18. So I don't know why I've done so many of them. I was supposed to do 4. I was supposed to do like 4 max, and then I was supposed to just bow out.
Well, you figure it's going to be a trajectory like Liz, that you start the fanzine, you get recognition, you get hired by Paizo, or you start doing a lot more freelance stuff, but you've just taken this on as a labor of love.
Well, that, and I also have a lot of support from my staff and people who really want to get involved, and they get a sense that I'm on a cliff, that I'm ready to just either knock it off or something, and so they step in and say, you need help. And I'm like, I really do need help. And so they actually re-energize me. When I get new people to come in and start working on it, new authors and new editors and new artists, it just kind of re-energizes me. Every issue, I kind of get burned out, and then suddenly I see all this new stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be great. So, I'm just not smart enough to quit.
I gotta say, one thing I was not expecting is how nostalgic that story just made me. It's talking about when Meetup was new, and it reminded me, I was at the second PaizoCon, or the first one that Paizo took over, and when Param and I were reviewing the experience, he was asking, was anyone there with tablets? Because that was a novel idea at the time, and that's always a question he asked me that really stuck with me, because everyone has tablets now. Like, Meetup it's come and gone. It's an old thing now.
It is. It's very old. Yeah.
Remember, we did an old episode, a series of episodes. in the early days of No Direction where I was like, which of these tablets can handle rendering the PDF of the books good enough that you could use it? And like now it's everything, including the one you get out of a quarter machine. But back then it was like hardly any of them could render the art-intensive PDFs very well.
By the way, there's one thing in chat that I want to bring attention to. It's once again D20 Film Guy. He's being very clever tonight. He was referring to your PaizoCon as PaizoCon Season 0.
And that is a good time for me to remind our listeners and our viewers that we do these shows in front of a live Twitch audience, and we encourage those in Twitch to ask any questions they have for either us or the guest. Preferably start with the guest, and we will relay them and answer them on air. So if you've got any questions, get them in chat live.
So, Tim, you were talking about how your staff reinvigorates you and how it's just like you take in this crop of new writers, you help hone them, you help make them more professional. So who are some of the members of the staff that make Wayfinder possible these days?
I have two basically I have two assistant editor-in-chiefs. It kind of works out that way. The husband and wife team of Kalina Conrad and Eric Hindley are my two co-pilots on this one. Kalina took over as in issue 16 with Eric. They were and then before that, for issue 15, they were associate editors. So that was when Paris was still with us. Paris Crenshaw departed because he was retiring from the Navy. He was also getting his Legendary Beginnings line kick-started up, and he needed to bow out. But luckily I had Eric and Kalina to step in and want to help, and that was crucial because I kind of came to really depend upon Paris to keep me sane, and so with him departing, it was almost like what am I going to do? But Eric and Kalina really had stepped up, and it was fun to teach them how it works and to kind of let them, I can be controlling, but I really enjoy when I kind of let them come up with ideas that I'm not really thinking about. So it takes the whole thing in a new direction for me, and it was really good because Kalina had a lot of great ideas, and Eric is very much a rules kind of guy that is able to catch. It's a whole new perspective because Paris and I were almost on the same wavelength towards the end, where we just were like one mind. So it was nice to have these two new minds that came in and make the whole thing new and different for me again. So also the other parts of my staff are Dane Nielsen, who has been doing the layout since issue number 6. So he has been in it almost as long as me. And the look of Wayfinder is a lot of Liz Quartz setting that bar. And then Dane and I and Garrett Giat all working to make the layout that much better. So it's built on the bones of what Liz set as what Wayfinder looks like. And then we just basically have to keep one-upping ourselves.
And I think it's important to talk about the layout and the look of Wayfinder, because when most people think about fanzines, they usually think about a certain amount of quality that I won't call insulting names. But the truth is that Wayfinder has so many talented and people working on it, many of them professionals or semi-professionals in the industry, and it looked, especially at the time it first started coming out, better than just about anything else being produced by third parties at that time. Like, we basically said it looked better than anything besides what Paizo was making themselves. Since then, and I think largely thanks to Paizo and thanks to efforts like Wayfinder, the bar of third-party publishing has been raised to meet you guys, but you guys still produce an amazing looking, well put together product.
Well, thank you. Every issue has a theme, and what we try to do is make every issue look the same, but yet everything ties into that theme. Everything. The background texture, what our fonts look like, what the header logo stuff around the titles look like. I try to we sit down, and a lot of times we go over the top. I mean, like really over the top. Like we'll just do pirates everything, and then we have to scale it back a lot. We're like, okay, it looks like junk. Like throw everything in the kitchen sink in it right now. So let's tone it down. Let's bring it back. Let's make it subtle, because over the top is good, but sometimes it just looks like you just couldn't control yourself. But yeah, we try to do every single issue with a kind of a look to it. So, and I think that's a lot of fun for me. I'm not the layout person, but being the editor-in-chief and publisher, I can kind of say, what if we do it this way? What if we do it this way? And make Dane do all this work, and then we finally get to like, hey, I really like that. That looks really good, and then we just go on. Actually, we've been getting a lot better. When we first did this, I thought Dane was either going to quit or he's going to drive across the country and kill me.
Oh, good. So, car broke down, out of gas, bus tickets too much.
Yeah.
All right. So since you talked about every issue has a theme. What's the theme for 17?
The theme for 17 is kind of a riff on what we did back in issue number 7. Number 7 was right around the time where we had 5 years of Pathfinder. So we kind of took the first 5 years and all the products that were made at that time and put it into this hodgepodge issue. It's about the most open theme kind of issue that I actually will accept, because open themes would just be a disaster. It's no focus, no nothing. So this one, since we're now here at 10 years of Pathfinder and at 10 years of PaizoCon, it's kind of a 10-year everything. We decided to go for the next 5 years. So we called this 5 more years of Pathfinder. And this is actually covering all the APs. We didn't put in all of the companion stuff and everything, because Paizo makes a lot more than they did 5 years ago. So we just cover the next 5. We cover all the APs that were in that from Skull and Shackles up through Strange Eons. So, and we kind of left it open to see which ones are going to be popular and if we could get a good spread of them. And actually, we did. It was a pretty good spread of different. We have something for almost every AP in that list. In fact, I know we do, because I had made sure that we did.
The only one I'm looking at on that list that I'm like, ooh, who would submit for that is Shattered Star.
No, there's a few things.
Yeah?
There's a few things.
Now you were talking about...
Not many. I think they're magic items, actually.
Okay. You were talking about how Dane, defines the visual look that goes along with the theme. How do you visually represent Skull and Shackles and Reign of Winter and Iron Gods and Strange Aeons and all of these eclectic adventure paths as one unified look?
So for this one, we basically, because it's a very Paizo everything, we basically made it look like a Paizo instead of a Paizo thing. We have we basically have, the little flourishes on the side that are on every Pathfinder book ever. We just put those in, and we made it purple. So, yeah,
excellent.
We made it purple, and then the thing that was critical was, how do we designate what the heck people are looking at when they look at an article? How are they going to know that's a Shattered Star? How are we going to know that that's Hell's Vengeance or Hell's Rebels, or how are they going to know that? And then you look at the community content, the community use content, and they have all these packs, and one of the packs is all the logos for the APs.
Perfect.
So we went ahead and just used that. I was trying to come up with something clever, like every AP is going to have an icon or something, sort of like in the bestiary, where every terrain has some sort of icon visual next to it. So I was trying to be clever, and then I was like, there's no artist that's going to do that for me. I'm kind of screwed at this point, because I asked Liz to do too much, and so then I was like, well, what are we going to do? And I'm like, oh my God, yes, those are free. I can use those with nobody's permission. That's great. This is awesome. So that's what we did. So it actually ties together pretty well. It has a lot of unifying elements that definitely, when you go through it, it does look very much like a Paizo kind of magazine.
Now,
which is what we try to
lay out the... Sorry,
that's what we try to do every time.
Mm-hmm.
And normally when you lay out the book, you do a nice variety, so it's not just like this is the fiction section, this is the monster section. Well, actually, the monsters you kind of do couple together, but you add a nice variety of types of articles. But now you've also got based on specific adventure paths. So how did you group and lay out this particular issue?
So I wanted to put them all, like, here's all of the Skull and Shackles, and then the next. And I kind of want to do that because everything's mixed up in that. We have some fiction for Skull and Shackles. We've got, we have some additional rules for the card game that got tossed in there.
Cool.
There's a lot of Skull and Shackles was pretty. There was a lot of that. So I could have put them in order of the AP, and then we could have just gone through it. But Eric said, no, the cool thing is that you have to go through the whole thing. And if you mix them all, I think you should mix them all up, because then everybody is, you just want to go through it all. You don't want to go specifically to a certain section and then ignore the rest of it. We want to mix them all up. And I was like, that's a very good point. Make everybody go through the whole thing and look for it. And so what I do is we do all of this in the Google Docs, the Google spreadsheet. And we have a spreadsheet that has every article and who does it and what is it. And it's a very big spreadsheet about and who's assigned to edit it. But what I do is I just sort them all through. And I just start, when I go through the layout, I basically say they're all highlighted in color by the type of article they are. So what I want to do is I just want to go through and I want to cycle through all of the different types of articles. So I'll go to fiction, and then, there's a class, and then here's some magic items, and then here's a fiction story, and then so I try to cycle through it so that you get an even spread throughout, so not all of your stories are bunched up in one spot. They're all spread evenly throughout the entire issue. It makes people want to go through the whole thing and see it all, and it feels more balanced. So you're not just clumped up somewhere. So that's what I do, and I just kind of cycle through, and a lot of it is everything has to have facing pages. I don't want to have things bleed over. I want an article, if it's a 2-page article, to be an open spread and not be split. So it's basically a lot of maneuvering and moving them around and visualizing in my head or with a printout copy of what this is going to look like. And we have rough page counts, so we just kind of just sort of lay it out in a way where we're just like, this is a good flow. And we twist and tweak it a lot, but that's basically what it is. We review like, you can't put that next to that one, that would be horrible. So it's a lot of playing around with order so that when Dane goes through it, he knows what order to put them in. But he lays them out. He and Garrett lay them out independently as independent files. So every article is in the layout. They build it and they put it all in, but it's all modular, so we can actually just slide them in the order when he's assembling it.
You mentioned that you use a Google Doc to keep track of things. How has technology's advancements changed how you run Wayfinder?
Well, Dropbox is awesome.
Yes.
That's the only way we could do that. I remember when we first started, Dane was the only one that had an actual account to it. I had all the free part of it because I only dealt with one issue at a time. And then my backup drive crashed. And I thought I was going to, we lost like a whole bunch of the first issues. But, of course, Dane had them all. He still kept everything there. So basically, we were going to bring it back. So I basically said, no more of this putting it on a backup drive. We're going to put it up on Dropbox, and it's just going to be archived up there. And I'll make a backup of it several times. And so that's really helped. And we're able to share with a lot of people. It's worked. It's just, we kind of do the same thing. It's a lot of online tools to talk to each other. But it's all in Word and InDesign pretty much, and Photoshop.
They also mentioned that there's an article on the card game. So technology is not the only thing that's advanced in the last 10 years. Pathfinder has. So how has that reflected what it means to have a Wayfinder issue?
Well, keeping to a theme makes it a lot like I said, really it makes a lot of focus, because there's so many products we can cover if we just, Paizo puts out a lot of stuff.
Do they?
They do. They do. Just a little, tiny bit. What it does is it makes it a whole lot easier to pick a theme that I don't feel like we're going to get overruled. Like, I'll give you an example. Back when we did issue 6, we did Lands of the Lenormand Kings. And Lands of the Lenormand Kings was, this was going to be great. Crown of the World. We're going to have all this stuff in, right? But Paizo was just putting out that book on it, the Land of the Lenormand Kings. And it was late. And we were wrapping up our call for submissions, and it still had not come out yet. And I was like, nobody's going to see this, and so they're all going to write to it, and then this book is going to just completely negate everything that we produced. So we kind of tried to kick it out as far another month as possible. I think people had about 2 to 3 weeks to read it and try to adjust. I personally remember going through articles, reading, and I had gotten an advance copy from Paizo so that I could review what we had received, and if there was something written in the book that basically negated it, so that we could make an adjustment. I could tell the author, this is what Paizo has already said. Can you work with that? Can we do a revision? And since then, we have not had to do that at all. I mean, honestly, the only trick is how far removed do we have to be from an AP being completed before we make it a theme. Mummy's Mask was one that was kind of tricky. Like, do we really? We started it like towards the end of the AP, and I was kind of like, is that too soon? But it turned out fairly well. So with the card game, it was one of those things where I didn't know if we had permission to even do that. To even, so I actually had to go ask if somebody comes up with scenarios that they want to run with cards. Do we have permission to even do that? And it took a little bit of asking back and forth, and like, no, it's okay, you can do that. And so Ron Lundeen actually was one of the first people to submit those, and it was really cool because I remember going over to Mike Sandlinker and saying, "Say, did you know that we actually put in some alternative fan-based scenarios?" And he's like, "Get out, you did?" And he's like opening up his reading. He's like, "This is really cool. I didn't know you were going to do this." And I'm like, "Okay, this is great." So it was positive. I got a good positive feedback. He was really excited. But yeah, that's been a lot of fun.
And I think that really illustrates something that a lot of people don't think of is Paizo's been really, really supportive of fan works and really supports its third party. And the community use and the OGL and the Pathfinder compatibility license let us do a whole lot of really awesome things. It doesn't let you do everything. And very few people run into that bump or understand that, this is why you can't make a Pathfinder mobile phone game. This is why you can't make, yeah, well, 1,000 different things. A card game would be one of them. You couldn't make Pathfinder chess as a third-party product.
Right. Yeah. With the community use policy, we actually have a lot of freedom. I mean, we can use the IP. We can write Valoros in if we want to. I mean, we have to really be careful about canon, but we can write to specific things and name all sorts of places, and there's a lot of places in the inner sea that Paizo has dropped little hints of something and then left it. And then, I remember, I don't know who I was talking to. I was like, what about this one place? You've put this on the map and it sounds awesome. Are you guys going to write to that? And so they're like, we did what? Oh, yeah. No, I don't know if we're ever going to do anything with that. And I was like, there's like literally all these little hooks, these little pieces that Paizo is scattered throughout that map, and we can write to all of it. And that's the power of having this as a community project, is that we get to do this sort of thing, and we're doing it for the love of it, and not necessarily that we want to make a buck out of it. And it's just really fun to let fans and beginner writers and artists explore the world and kind of make it what they want to. The imagination behind it. It's just it's always like Christmas when I get to see everything that we're gonna the pool of articles that we can tap from. And it's like, oh, what's this going to be like, you know? So I actually never know what an issue is going to look like until after the call closes and we go through them all, and I start to get a sense of, is this really going to be a bad issue for us, or is this going to be like, you know, surprisingly good, you know? So I have my doubts in the beginning. Like sometimes I get some submissions that I'm just like, oh boy, we got a new crop here, and wow, we're going to have some work ahead of us. And then, you know, as you get into it, you're like, okay, this is better than my first impressions, because we go in really super critical now. I mean, when you get like 100 some submissions and you can only use half of them, yeah, we had to start forcing ourselves to be really picky and really critical. And that was kind of hard from when I remember in the beginning, I was getting 30 some articles and begging people to write another one. So this has changed a lot. Mm-hmm. We can be picky and actually not just take everything that comes in. So it makes me kind of feel bad, because I do want to accept everything. I want to give everybody a shot. But you know, some people are dialed in really, really strongly and don't violate any of our guidelines, and they get it the first time around. Some people, it takes them a few times to understand that it is PG-13. They can't put that kind of stuff in it. It's objectionable. Yeah, there's been a few where we're like kind of looking at it and going, and no, this is not happening. No, sorry, reject.
That's surprising. You guys tapped me once for an editing pass, and that was a lot of hard work I didn't expect.
Really?
Well, I've never edited professionally before, or semi-professionally, so I was like,
we're not professionals. We're not professionals here. Half of my editorial staff, some of them now just are really good in, like, they're former writers, or I know, like, for you, for instance, I know you know the rules upwards, downwards, sideways, backwards. When you read through something, you could say, that's not really the way that's supposed to work. And a lot of editors don't have that. I mean, that we have two different kind of pots of editors. We have the ones that are really into the crunch and they know the rules and that are really good at it. And they get into the math even. They're like, I had to go do the stat block all over again. And I'm like, you did what? Really? You did the whole stat block all over again? That's pretty dedicated. And then I have some people that are very prose oriented, and they read through it and they basically just rewrite it because they say that the English was terrible. You know, it's like they're just, look, you know, gerunds here, and I just, you know, they just can't, it's not written efficiently, so they kind of go through it. And I think the most important thing for our editors, the thing that I value the most, is when we have editors that want to work with the authors, because this is a learning experience for everybody. And a lot of times authors, and I know this working for Paizo, when we write it, we hand it in, and we don't see it until it comes out in the actual in the actual book sometimes. So we don't, you know, sometimes feedback is important, and I know a lot of times these are brand new people that just have no idea what freelance even looks like. And if you have an editor that actually has done some freelancing and gets it, this is a teaching moment. And I always kind of think, you know, we could be making the next great freelancer here. And, you know, if we can help bring that along, that's part of what we're here for.
And you have made several great freelancers. Like when Paizo does their freelancing for Paizo seminars, their advice is usually try and get into RPG Superstar. So everyone knows it's like, that's a really tight cut. If you fail that, write for Wayfinder.
We have a better success rate than RPG Superstar did, because we can accept a lot more people. So that's,
well, and people write to their strengths or to their interests when they're writing for Wayfinder, whereas they're writing to, you know, limitations, to directives when they're writing for RPG Superstar.
Exactly.
Plus, and Wayfinder's still around.
Yeah, one of those things still exists.
Yeah.
Now, yes. I do have other questions about how things have changed over the years, but we'll get to those towards the end of the interview, we'll say. I want to focus more on number 17, and we do have a question from chat, although I don't know if you're going to be able to answer it.
We've got 2 questions,
honestly,
I think, that are 17 related.
Okay, well, the first one I was thinking was from Imperiosaur, wants to know your favorite article from number 17.
All of them.
All of them, of course.
Love all of them.
Come on, Tim.
God,
there's got to be one article that you're, even like after having laid everything out and loving everything, you're like, that one really left an impression. I was surprised. I was impressed. There was just something different about that.
Okay. I like the Wheel and Woes. I always like the Wheel and Woes. We have one from Neil Spicer that really made me smile. And,
fun.
And the art was really good. It was different and unique, and it was like, it just gave me all sorts of ideas when it went off. It was like, oh my God, everything about this is really good. And then Todd Stewart wrote a story with his Alicia Worm Touched, I think that's her name. I gave him a lot of word play for that, and it's a pretty big story, and it's got some excellent art because he hits that character in particular illustrated a lot. So I was able to make my stamp on it, and by picking out some artists that I thought would do it justice, do that character justice. And it's always a pleasure to have Todd's crazy stories in our issue. So it was good to have this one in there as well.
And he knows you own that character now that he's Smith, right? Like, he's lost all rights to that character. He's cool with that, right?
Sure. When you find my dead body in a PaizoCon behind a dumpster, you'll know what happened. Actually, the thing with Wayfinder, and it's important to note, is that authors and artists retain their rights to everything. So I don't own them. I mean, we have the copyright. The only thing that we require is that they are giving us the permission to have it in our magazine and to use it again. So I can use that story or the art in other Wayfinder products if we ever do Wayfinder products, on posters or submitting it for an ad if somebody asks us to do an ad for it. But they retain the rights to that. It's just that we retain the right to be able to have it in Wayfinder, so they can go on later and sell that piece of art. But whoever buys the art can't come back and say, I own this art now, and it can't be in Wayfinder. That's the only stipulation. Because I don't want to step on anybody's toes. Nobody gets paid for this. I don't get paid for this. Nobody gets paid for this. So this is all a volunteer effort. So when all that hard work goes in, I want people who write a really good rules article to be able to sell it to somebody else if they want to do that. I don't know if that's ever happened, but I want to give them the right that it's their article. They have that.
That's good to know.
That would because
you were talking about.
You have stuff in there. You could take it.
Yeah. That's like, so I still own the Arcane Archaeologists, do I? I don't know what I would do with them.
The only problem there is that a lot of it is dealing with Paizo intellectual property, so
exactly.
That becomes difficult.
Right.
Okay, so
you were talking about the art. Param, did you want to?
Oh, let's do the art.
Okay, so you were talking about the art, Tim. What's some of the art highlights of number 17?
Our cover.
Mm-hmm.
I love our cover. Our cover. So as you know, every issue, it seems like when I get a review of it, it's like, this is the best one yet. And people go ooh and ah over the cover. And every cover I seem to be a little more proud of every single time. So like when we did issue 13, the Ustaloff one with the stained glass windows and stuff, I loved that cover. That cover was fantastic. The character that was done by Aaron Fry was fantastic. I mean, everything came together so well with that one, and I was like, this is beautiful. And then, so we did that, and then 14 was the monsters with the hag, Michael Jakes, and it, that turned out really well too. And I was like, that's a really nice cover too. And then we did 16. So when we got to 16, that was the Numeria one, and I was like, I want to do something for Eric Mona, and I want to do a pulpy cover for it. So we did that, and everyone said, this is the best cover you've ever done. Ever. is this your new cover style? And I'm like, oh my God, this was just going to be, I wanted to mix it up and make it special. Every issue's got to be special in a theme. And like I said, every issue has to have a feel of its own. And so, by the way, this is backwards. Oh. Anyways.
No, it's not backwards for the audience.
Good. So we tried to do something, this has even got the crease marks and, it's just fantastic. We will have copies for this in the store at PaizoCon, by the way, in color. So they were like, we get to this one, and I'm like, what in the hell are we going to do for this one? And I got an idea that since it's a wrap-up of all sorts of things and all sorts of characters and everything, that I wanted to try to do a codex style theme, like the villains codex or the NPC codex. I wanted to do a codex style theme. So we came up with an idea. I had to go search to see if I could find an artist willing to do what I had in mind, and whether he or she had the ability to do it. Because this is almost at the mark of it's going to get compared to Wayne Reynolds stuff, and it's just kind of like, so who is going to be with the fiddly bits that are everywhere? and I found this great artist I think he's in Greece, Dionysos Malonis, and he knocked it out of the park. Just when he was putting stuff together, I was like, oh my God, this is turning out better than I even imagined it would. So anyways, I have an image that we can share as a preview for everybody. Once this is shared, I'm going to go ahead and tell all of my artists that for this issue that they are free and able to put up previews for their art that they did for this.
Excellent.
I usually give them a green light at about a week out. This will be a little early, but I think we're ready.
Okay.
I think this issue needs a buzz. So.
Okay, so here we go. There it is. It's a really nice cover. I'm used to y'all doing really great covers, but this one, wow.
So everybody on that cover, every person, every character is an actual person that is either worked on Wayfinder or has been a significant part of making Wayfinder what it is. We have like James Jacobs up there in the balcony. He is very important because this Galarian is kind of his baby. I mean, this is I owe a lot to James for this campaign setting and the APs and everything. So he's kind of the godfather up there, making sure that that his Pathfinder Society people are not into trouble. Next to him is Steve Getz, who's been a fantastic sponsor for us. He has really helped out in the way of letting us get enough funds to print this to hand out at PaizoCon. So he's been hugely supportive. And we have Thirsty because there's no PaizoCon that's complete without Thirsty now. Ever. It's like he's more famous for PaizoCons than I am now. So, yeah, everyone at the table has worked on Wayfinder. Yeah.
And it's basically I want to also let our listeners know that we were talking about a piece of art that we're looking at live, and if you're watching the video, this is great. For any of our listeners, we're going to have a copy of this posted on our blog so you guys can see it.
Yeah, and this will also be on our Facebook page. I will be putting up the full illustration.
Yep, and we will have links to the Wayfinder Facebook page and all the cool Wayfinder stuff, including past issues, which are all free, because all Wayfinders are free, and in all kinds of cool stuff.
Now, I have a question about the cover, Tim. There is a copy of Wayfinder on the table. It's Wayfinder number 7.
Yep.
Why is it Wayfinder number 7?
Because that was the last one that was the first 5 years.
Okay.
So
Makes sense.
This is its partner to that. And those are all iron stones for Wayfinders.
That makes so much sense.
But
so there's a lot of similarity, a lot of nitpicky little things in there that the artist was able to stick in there that really meant a lot to a lot of us.
Excellent.
I like Liz's cookies.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Liz's cookies. Funny thing about that was that I told him that they were cookies on a blue plate. Liz felt it was very important. She'll have to tell me what the blue plate signifies. It must be a Caden thing or something. I don't know. Blue plate special. Anyways, he made a bunch of blue cookies on a plate. So I had to go back and say, wait a minute. Translation here. So, but no, it's a lot of. We had a lot of fun with that. It's just, the other thing about this is that every one of our characters signifies one of the APs.
Oh, well, now I have to look at this again.
Yeah, there's a lot of symbolism in this.
So Paris is Skull and Shackles.
Yep.
Okay, that's all I got. I'm trying to spot Numerian. I guess is Eric Numeria?
No, Garrett is. He's a barbarian.
Oh, okay. I was looking for the tech side of it, but no, that makes sense. Yep. All right, well, I can just sit here and make guesses until I figure them all out, but I think I'll just do that on my own.
For me, it should be pretty easy, because if you know anything about me and my favorite character, who is canon in Galarian.
Oh, well, now you're making me feel like I don't know enough. I'm looking over the list of APs.
Howl is my character that I played in James Jacobs' game, the Office game, who is actually in the NPC guide, briefly.
That I knew.
So he is canon. So he is actually part of the world. I have this confirmation that he is part of Galarian. And he is a paladin. So what AP would he be?
Wrath of the Righteous?
Absolutely.
All right.
So
you didn't have to hold my hand for very long.
You hold up the hand. So some of them are a little less. I mean, briefly or loosely associated. There's some that are very strong. Like Eric's has definitely got the Asmodeus sign on him, so he's going to represent Hell's whatever. Yeah, so we had a lot of fun with that. And there's a lot of symbolism. I'm hoping to see a lot of people at the convention this year, just kind of looking and trying to figure out this, who everybody is and what all the little Easter eggs and things that we put in there.
Do you know if everybody that's on this cover is going to be at PaizoCon this year?
No, Dane is not going to be there. Liz will be there. I'll be there. I don't think Hugo is going to be here this year. Paris will be there because he's my roomie. Clean and Eric will be. I don't know about Garrett. I know Steve Geddes will be, and I know that Thirsty will be.
And James.
And James. And James will be there, yes.
I kind of want everyone to sign their picture, and this might be a couple of years project for me then.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know, man. I wouldn't want to sign the pretty covers. So I actually have a copy here. So.
Ooh. Are you doing a black and white and a color print this year?
Actually, I have a surprise.
Oh?
They will all be color this year.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
This is a very special issue for me. So I felt this needed to be in color because we could do it. So
awesome.
That's amazing.
Well,
you have no idea.
So you know what? I'm actually going to end up with 2 copies of this because my wife's joining me. So I will be able to keep one mint and one I'll be able to have signatures on.
The issue that we have with that is that we don't, because we can't print a lot. We do, when we hand them out at registration, we do ask for one per household.
Ooh.
All right, then
so that
scratch that.
Every household gets one.
Can I buy this cover as a print?
Can you buy just the cover?
Well, can you sell prints of the cover?
Actually, I might.
All right.
You'll have to talk to me.
I will talk to you.
Okay.
But, after the episode.
I mean, I can't really sell anything. Basically, you can donate. You can donate if you would like to have something. I can possibly arrange that.
All right. We'll talk. Is there any interior art that you want to bring attention to?
Oh my God! So the art is really my passion, and it's really funny because I fell into it. I didn't actually intend to be the art director because that was Hugo. And if Hugo, and then it was Liz. So these are our two artists. They know their thing, and they don't need me getting in their way. But when Hugo departed and Liz departed, I kind of took it over, and this became very. I love doing the art. I mean, actually, this is probably one of the most favorite things I get to do. Is I get to read all the articles. I get to sit down with my staff, and we pick out the ones we want that inspire us. And then I think to myself, who's going to do the art for this? And what are they going to do? So I get to read through it all. I get to write the art orders, and I get to pick the artists for every issue. And this is great. This is the best part of it for me. So I actually get to really customize how this is going to look. And I think that the art is, well, I mean, we'll be honest. The art is the eye candy for this. We could do all the articles, but it comes down to the art that really sells the issue, that brings it to life. I know that the authors appreciate the art as much as I do because they get to see something that they wrote fully realized as an illustration that literally is so professional. It's just amazing that we even get them done. Gosh, no, I like all the art. I like absolutely. I will do this one. I like this one specifically. There we go. Yes. I love this piece of art.
I'm gonna maximize Skype so I can get a better look at it.
Oh, okay. So this is Todd Stewart's story, and this is done by Tanya Porn Sansnit, who's one of my favorite people. She's great. I'm going to give her a shout out early. So, but yeah, that's Abadar. She's making faces at Abadar. I love it. It's one of my favorites.
It's impressive. I like there's a real weight to the figures really feel three-dimensional in that, and that really helps bring the whole thing to life, especially because it takes place on multiple layers.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the art in this is that, you know, these are all people that are, I mean, there are some that are professional artists, like Michael Jakes does a lot of stuff for us, and I appreciate him taking the time to do that. But we have a lot of other artists that, you know, I personally, after they draw something, illustrate something for us, I totally hope that they get into a Paizo. To me, a lot of these people are on their way to being on that level. Definitely. So it makes me very happy when I see that some of them get picked up by Legendary Games. A lot of people get picked up for a lot of different third-party publishers, and that makes me happy because I want to see them have their stuff in all sorts of products. So Beatrice is one of my other favorites. That she's just Beatrice Pelagati, phenomenal. And I've seen Legendary Games is now having her do all sorts of stuff. So it makes me extremely happy to see the artists picking up. And the best thing for me is to have an artist tell me that they can't do something for me this issue because they're too busy with commissions. I'm fine with that, because that means I get to go on and find and make room for new artists and see who else is out there. So this is, you know, I'm not trying to cycle people through. I'm always welcoming people who want to help us and be part of the issue, but I also really want to see them move on professionally and be so busy that they just don't have time for us anymore. So. And
Tim, your passion and sincerity really comes through when you say things like that. Like, this is clearly, you're not just saying that because it's the right thing to say. You're saying it because it's clearly what you feel in your heart. And I really appreciate that about you.
Well, thanks. I mean, it's the same thing with PaizoCon. it's about community, and it's about people who want to do great things together. And we come together. We're not looking to get paid. You know, I mean, we are looking to get paid, but we're doing something that we want to do, and we're doing it together because we love the campaign setting. We love the rules. You know, we work together to make something that people go, oh my God, this is great. This is a fanzine. You know, it's that kind of thing, and then they get to move on and they get noticed, and you know, I get to sit down with Jason Nelson or Wolfgang Bauer, and I get to like, so here's an artist that you may not have heard of that you need to start using, and I used to be able to sit down and just start sharing all my names, and I do that a lot for a lot of third-party publishers who are like, I really need some artists. Do you have any thing to share? And I'll share my entire list. I very freely will share my entire list of artists with any third-party publisher who is looking for artists to use, because by sharing that, I am giving any of those artists a free shot to make some paid commission art, and to just do more for their portfolio and build and get paid for it. Because the worst thing, if in my head, that I have a problem with is, so there are a lot of, like, Facebook has a whole entire group of freelance artists that do great fantasy art, and I'm on that and I look at it, but the thing that they say right at the top is, don't ask us for free art. So I can't go to that group and say, I'm looking for people who want to be part of Wayfinder, and you know, but it's free art. You know, you'll be doing it for free, because that's a violation of their group, and I feel badly because I want to get them, but I also want to respect the fact that art's not free. So, and you don't pay an exposure. I get that, and that's really, I feel really strongly. If I could pay every artist and every author for Wayfinder, I would. Definitely. But
there is some exposure that actually has value, and Wayfinder exposure is payment.
Right. Yes, but it's also one of those things that this is the trippy slope for me, is that's a very vocal, very visceral thing when you say I'm paying an exposure.
Right.
So even though
I can say that about Wayfinder, but yeah, it's a different thing when you start saying that about Wayfinder.
Yeah. Right. So I don't try to. The way I sell it, really honestly, is that it's a community project. So you're working with me and a bunch of other people who are all putting together something that none of us get paid for, but we do it because we're building something that has a tradition and some value. And now that RPG Superstar is gone, it actually is a gateway. It's definitely becoming a gateway. We never intended it to be a gateway. I can tell you from the beginning, this was never intended to be the place to get into the industry. But we're turning into that, and it's with that sense, I have a sense of responsibility to be able to continue that and make it as legit and solid as I can.
And you've mentioned community a lot, but one thing that, just from the names that you've been dropping today, is really sinking in is how global the Pathfinder and the Wayfinder community is. Like, it was founded by Hugo. Hugo lives in Mexico. You've got a couple of Canadians on board now, which, you know, fills my heart with maple syrup and glee. Your artist was by your cover was by a Greek artist. You've had, you know, no offense to you, but some issues pronouncing some of the artist names, and that just kind of reflects the number of cultures that are represented, like real world cultures represented in the contributors to Wayfinder.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's global. It really is. We have illustrators from the Philippines, Thailand, Germany, Italy, Australia, Great Britain. And I can't even tell you half the time where the authors are coming from. There's a lot of different places. It's really cool, and so that always ties into the being able to do it all email and Dropbox, and it's all online. It's all shared online. So
Yeah, and then when the Wayfinder comes out at PaizoCon, maybe these international people can't make it to Seattle. Like, that's the more oceans you're crossing, the more expensive that trip is. But they are represented at PaizoCon, and if they intend to do this professionally, you are getting them on Paizo's doorstep.
Yeah, it's interesting when Paizo when they make those kinds of recommendations. A lot of blog posts by Wes or Jessica or anybody that says, if you want to, when people ask them, how do I get into the industry, they always bring up Wayfinder, and it's kind of nice,
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of nice to have the actual company be like, yeah, we actually really like this. So, and then they actually do support us very well too.
Mm-hmm.
So they support us in many different ways.
Many of them have written for Wayfinder, haven't they?
Yes, they eventually, that's the. I honestly don't know what my alumni actually, where they are, or how many people are now doing. I don't know. I mean, it's honest. I don't know how many of them are freelancers. I don't know how many of them actually do work at Paizo. But Adam Daigle, he used to be an editor, and he wrote several articles. Some of my favorites.
Crystal's written articles for you, I'm pretty sure.
Crystal has. Let's see.
Liz was a great example.
Mm-hmm.
Liz, let's see. Mark Seifert, he wrote something. And Linda did as well. She wrote something in an issue. A couple things. Yeah, she wrote a couple articles in one of the issues. And then she's like, no, she works there. And
Thirsty?
Yeah, Thirsty has. Yes. So,
surely he's contributed.
No, Thirsty hasn't.
Wow.
Thirsty is very much
an article.
He's on the PFS track. To me, that's actually the one part that makes me sort of sad is we can't do anything for PFS, and I know I'm losing a lot of. I have a potential audience there that just doesn't care about Wayfinder because it's not PFS legal. So why read it? So that makes me sad. But I know and I understand why we can't do anything for PFS because that's a whole system in itself, and we just can't keep introducing fan crap to it. So that's always like a hole in the only thing that we can't actually share. The PFS is sort of a departed, separate section for us. So,
well, this is a cop-out, I know, but there is some value. I mean, your character comes from the world, and all the fiction and campaign setting stuff is still helpful for role-playing said characters, because PFS is, despite accusations of, is not all about how fast you can kill monsters.
Well, I mean, I do hope that they read it for the value of just the setting and what other fans are creating. Gives them, really, it's about inspiring people.
I mean,
but I have been approached and people have said I don't read Wayfinder because there's nothing legal in it for me. So, and it's kind of like, well, I really can't do anything for you then.
Full refunds. Full refunds.
So Tim, we've got about 20 minutes left in the time you said you had for us. Okay. Did you have any closing thoughts on Wayfinder number 17 before we move on to Wayfinder 18 and beyond?
No, I hope everyone really enjoys it. It's been kind of it is one of those issues that we didn't know how well it would come together with all of the disparaging. Like I said, this is about the most open of a theme that I really want to get. Because it was so open, we actually had less submissions than we usually do. I actually was sort of concerned that, like, is no one submitting to Wayfinder anymore? And it turned out that people just didn't know what to do. I mean, the theme actually serves a purpose, and it's not just for me, it's for people writing for it. They need to be inspired by something. So, Ustaloff was a great thing. A lot of people got really inspired by it. Unfortunately, most of that was creepy vampire stuff that I didn't want to use.
Aww.
Well, no, really creepy vampire stuff. But you know, every issue has its challenges, and everybody has either they like it or they don't. Numeria was another one that was kind of like either you love it or you don't. Mummy's Mask was the same way. Assyrian, either you like it or you don't. Every issue's that way, and it just seems like if we can cater to it, and when I get a lot of submissions, I get a ton of submissions that are way too many submissions, then I know that's a really popular one and people were inspired by it. So open themes are hard because people have less focus and they get confused, or it's just too challenging for them. So this one was a little bit of a challenge, but you know, luckily we have a pretty deep pool of submissions that people put in. And I think it's a really solid issue. It's a beautiful issue. It's just absolutely beautiful. And so kudos to Dane and Garrett for pounding that out. It just looks fantastic. And yeah, it's like I said, it's a very special issue because this is 10 years of PaizoCon, 10 years of Pathfinder. This is kind of something I wanted to do very special for this year. So, but like I said, if you want to move on to the next one, our theme for the next one has a lot of people jazzed up.
Ooh, well, then what is the theme for number 18?
The Fae and First World.
Yes!
So this is going to be a lot of fun because a lot of people really dig this as a theme. It is pretty open. I mean, it's still really open. People would think, gosh, you know, that's a really limited theme. But actually somebody was asking, where would I, you know, at what points in Galarian do I write? And I'm like, open it up. You know, if you read anything about the First World, there are rifts and portals everywhere, and they're scattered throughout the entire region, and all you have to do is find them. And then you can write to anything, any place where this is, where you think Fae would be, and including the whole First World and all of that. This is really, I mean, as focused as that is on Fae, it's everywhere. I mean, I'm actually really excited to see if people can find stuff that I didn't even know existed there.
And also one of the great things about Fae is that you can just like find a thing about nature that you like, make it a monster. Like it's as simple as that. And then like try and build an ecology around it. And it's like, it is nature brought to life. And there's a lot of crazy, fascinating things that happen in the real world all the time. And it's just ripe for like inspiration for new Fae creatures.
It is, and it's going to end, you know, all of the Paizo stuff that's open for the community use. I mean, all of the different products, they're there for inspiration. Definitely. Even the bestiaries. I didn't even list that, you know, one of the bestiaries actually has a template for Fae creatures, Fae touched. So they could just make their own thing. The bestiary will be very interesting this year, that's for sure.
So what was it about Fae in the First World that, or like, so you could have had any theme. So what was it about Fae in the First World that had to be the issue 18 theme?
So we kind of went on the message boards and sort of asked people for ideas because in my head I have a list that I know that we're going to do at some point, but sometimes I'm the only one excited about those. So. And in our discussions, Eric definitely had opinions, and Kalina had opinions, and so we kind of were going around. It's like, I'm just going to ask, and the one that gets the most rabid response, the one that people are just really, I can tell they are really, 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 really wanting it. And it turned out that, you know, there was a lot from all over, but there was a lot of people saying, I'd like to see Fae First World stuff, and I was like, the more I thought about it, the more I thought that's a really solid issue and it has a lot of potential. And that's kind of, you know, there were some that were like, well, why don't you do one on races? So you can do an elf issue, or you can do, you know, things like that. I kind of just thought it was time. This was one of those things. And especially since I wrote a Fae adventure in 15, I saw the merits of actually, of how potentially fun that could be. So
sorry, I'm here thinking up an article for this issue, so I should be focusing on questions I could be asking.
I haven't gotten one from you for a long time, dude.
I know.
I would love to have you back.
There are reasons.
There's a reason for that. I stopped doing.
I know.
Yes. Anyway,
exactly
I'm back in the game now,
Okay,
and
all
this
right.
might be my big return.
We do have some audience questions.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I've lost this one.
Was it the one from Russ?
Yes. Russ Brown 44 says, "Tell us about Wayfinder Bestiary."
Oh, yes. So Ryan actually saw this last year.
And I'm super excited that somebody asked about it, because I forgot to ask you if we were allowed to talk about it in the preamble.
No, that's fine. Yes, this has been this labor of love that, oh my God. You know, bestiaries, don't let anybody tell you how simple that's going to be, because they're lying. They're lying. They're lying. And I actually had this little bonding experience with James Jacobs about how incredibly hard bestiaries are, and he's like, "Yep, they are." And so, yeah, we've been processing this one for what I think 2 years now, maybe even 3. What we wanted to do is assemble all of the monsters from all the issues up to a certain point, and put them into one book, put them all together. The challenge is that we don't lay out the bestiaries in our magazines like they do in a book, which is one monster per page. And we kind of run them together because we don't have a lot of pages, and we don't really pay attention to the page to word counts to fit on a page. We just kind of let them flow. So when we started to do a bestiary, I said, we're going to do it, and it's going to look exactly like, as much like a Paizo bestiary book as we can possibly do. I mean, I want people to open this up and go, I didn't know Paizo made another bestiary. So that was the challenge, and the challenge became very hard because a lot of our monsters didn't fit a page. Some of them didn't. They went a page and a quarter. And so you're like, I don't want to cut this, because if we cut it, then it's like not what was in the magazine. It's now abbreviated. So that was a challenge. Some of them didn't fill a page. So we were like, okay, we got tons of white space. What are we going to do with this? So the challenge was we had to go, after we laid it out and we saw all the problems, we had to go back, ask the original authors, and Ryan was one of those, can you write more for this? Because we can't fill a page, and we'd like to have more stuff so that we can fill the white space. You know, we not use all of it, but we would like to use as much as possible so it looks nice. So some of them, they get whittled down to be more efficient. Some of them got a lot more content. I would say about 50 creatures actually got expanded. So that's what we were doing our past year. So right now, Dane is going through and trying to put that all together, and our goal is to try to have it ready for PaizoCon. It will be post
PaizoCon?
Yes.
9 days from now, PaizoCon?
Yes. That's how close it is. Now, I can't guarantee. He says that he thinks he's pretty close to being able to do that. We may run into another damn roadblock that I didn't see, but if it does not come out for this PaizoCon, it will come out a couple weeks afterwards, because we are so close. We've been close for months now, but the problem is that you get Wayfinders backed up, and then you basically you're like, when am I going to stick this extra little project in to the middle of that without pulling my hair out or gouging my eyes out or something? You know, it's it's a balance. And we just had to find the time to be able to sit down and focus to make the best bestiary we could. But we are hoping to have it ready to post online for free on the Paizo.com website. Woo-hoo. It's going to be well over 200 pages, and it runs from Wayfinder 1 through 15. So everything from 1 through 15.
I am very excited about this. I agree that it looks like a Paizo bestiary, the pages you were showing me last year. It's super impressive. It's above and beyond the usual high quality you do for Wayfinder.
It was a goal. It was like, I want to look at it and have people mistake it for a Paizo product. That's kind of the whole point, but we'll see.
And that's one thing that I've said on the show before is I really love all these monsters that we get in the APs and in Wayfinder and stuff. But when it's grabbing a monster at the middle of a game table, the bestiaries are so convenient, and when your monsters are scattered through. Now, which issue of Wayfinder was the monster in? It stalls you. So this is going to make these. I bet these monsters see much more play after this now.
I hope so. We actually found out that a lot of them didn't have art in the beginning. When I took over, I wanted to have every creature have art. So it soon became a goal that every creature got art. But in the beginning, the first couple issues, not every monster had art. And then, again, in the beginning issues, some of the art wasn't quite up to snuff to put in a bestiary. When you have the art that we have now, it's really high caliber, I think. So when you put something in that doesn't match, it was kind of jarring. And so we actually had a lot of the art redone. We had new artists that we have now on board went back and said, can you take this old illustration and improve upon it, make it better? So we went and updated some pieces, and that's another bonding thing I had with James Jacobs, where he was like, oh, I got to order new art for this, something in the AP. So
here's the bad news, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
We got cut off. We are offline right now. Most of your answer was lost to the live audience, but it will be available for the podcast listeners.
Okay.
And we're only a couple of minutes before you have to go, so hopefully we get this worked out in enough time that we can at least say goodbye to you and point people towards where they can find out more about Wayfinder. Because I'd hate for this to take like 5 minutes and then they come back and you're just gone.
I had to run. Bye.
But yeah, we also don't want you to be late. So while we're doing that, I'm going to change my...
It says I am connected again.
Okay.
Now I'm just waiting for... Yes, we are back live. We are back live. Okay, hold on. I need a moment of silence so I know where I need to edit.
Hey, you. Podcast. We need a moment of silence, Scarlett. Okay, I'm going to turn off.
Okay, we're good.
Okay.
That'll be big enough for me to find in the edit track to fix this. Also, I've lost all of the chat log. Hey, Scarlett. For those of you who don't know, it's our most important member of the No Direction family, Scarlett.
Scarlett making her nightly cameo.
Awesome.
She's got to have this planned. She's making regular appearances now.
She just got back from her grandmother's place.
Oh. All right.
Cool. So I did give an answer. So there.
Yes, you did give an answer.
Yes.
Yeah, so
people will have to listen to the podcast to get the full answer.
Right.
Because we're out of time for you, Tim. So thank you again for joining us.
You bet.
It's been too long. And I think the last time we gave a shout out to Wayfinder, it was after the call for submission was done. And it just kind of dawned on me that Wayfinder is still a pillar of the community. And we've kind of taken it for granted. So it's good to have you back on and to just talk about Wayfinder again. It's been too long.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I could talk, and if you find me at PaizoCon, I can talk even more about it. I'm actually, I'll just say, if you're at PaizoCon, please do come up and ask me questions. Come up and say hi. Come up and tell me that you like or don't like it. Whatever. This is the time that I really enjoy PaizoCon, simply because I get to see everybody and talk to people and interact. That's really what it's all about for me.
Awesome.
I do get to play a lot of games, but I actually enjoy the whole fraternizing and socializing with everybody. So I'm looking forward to seeing everybody there.
Awesome.
And I'm looking forward to seeing you again, Tim.
Yeah.
So before we let you go, why don't you tell people where they can find Wayfinder number 17 in case they're not going to PaizoCon, and what they can do if they want to submit to Wayfinder number 18.
Okay, so pretty much we don't have a web presence except in the Paizo website right now. Being a volunteer effort, it's hard to actually put together a website. So you can get any of the Wayfinders in the Paizo store. You just look up Paizo Fans United or Wayfinder, and there's a whole bunch of them there. There's 16, and there will be 17 there. This will post the morning next Friday morning. So when registration opens for PaizoCon, that's when this will drop. You will get them exactly at the same time. Everybody there is getting their hands on them. So that will be there. When the bestiary goes live, it will be on the Paizo.com website as well. And we have, if you want to submit to Wayfinder 18, please go and look at the message board. We're under the community use projects. Just go and look for community use project for Wayfinder 18. You'll see all of the guidelines. We have a discussion there. So if you want to ask us any questions about one of your ideas, we can try to respond to that and try to set you on the right path. And then all the directions are there how to submit. Everything, all the guidelines, all the rules, everything is all in that message board. You can also you can get around to it, locate it on our Facebook page.
Excellent.
As well.
Awesome. So we're going to be back to talk about Pathfinder Kingmaker in the news section in a minute. I kind of regret that we couldn't go back over all the buildings in my Kingmaker campaign that I named after you, Tim.
Oh my God. This is going to require you to tell me about this at PaizoCon. I want to hear.
Maybe we'll talk about it in the news section, or maybe it'll just be between you and I. Because
either way, I will listen. This will be great.
Well, okay, we named the tavern the Nightengales, and then it became a running gag. So even some buildings we didn't have, we were theoretically naming. Like the brothel was going to be the Nightengale. Awesome. And there was the Fight and Flail was our arena.
Oh, I see where this is going. I don't want to hear anymore.
There's at least one more good one. I'll try and remember it for PaizoCon.
Awesome.
Excellent. All right. I look forward to seeing you then.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks again. Take care.
All right.
And we will be right back with the news right after this.
Pathfinder News. Pathfinder News. Pathfinder News. Pathfinder News.
And we're back.
In the Pathfinder News segment, we talk about all the latest happenings for the Pathfinder role-playing game from Paizo, from third-party publishers, and, in today's case, licensees or second-party publishers.
Yes.
So,
that's such a great term to have learned earlier.
Second-party publishers?
Yes.
Yeah. I think we learned it when we were just like, there's third-party publishers, but what's a second-party publisher?
It was when we were talking with Mike Selinker.
Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah, he told us what a second-party publisher was.
So, we got a huge bomb dropped this morning when we found out that for all of the years that there's been rumors and developments about a Pathfinder video game, we got the biggest confirmation about an upcoming Pathfinder video game today. It's from Owlcat Games. Param, you're more of a video game player than I. Do you want to take the lead on this one?
Okay, actually, can you take it for one more minute? I have to pull it up on screen so everybody, because
no problem.
You guys got to see this.
So it is called Pathfinder Kingmaker, and it is described as the first isometric CRPG set in the Pathfinder in the Pathfinder fantasy universe. Now, I don't know if the site said this earlier, but their Facebook page actually said the first CRPG based on the Pathfinder rules. Their website has different information, and there's some iffiness about whether they can base a game on the Pathfinder rules. So that's something we're going to get into. But just wow, the last we heard, Obsidian had the rights to Pathfinder video games. And immediately they started developing the app game based on the card game, based on the adventure card game. And at the time, there was vague promises that this would be the first, but there would be more to come. But we didn't know what the more to come was. We just knew that it was starting with an app game. Now we've got this new company, Owlcat Games, that's been announced as the developer of this game. Scarlett's back. It's Karam.
Hello, Scarlett.
Okay, say goodnight. Sure. All right, Scarlett, I'm podcasting.
Come on.
I'll see you later.
Oh. I mean, if she wants to see Tink again, we can do this after the show, but...
No, it's her bedtime.
Okay. Yeah, but let's like first I'm going to pull up some of the art. There's some really interesting things to see about the art. First is their big splash screen is very interesting because we see 4 characters up front that are original characters. They look like they are something the player character would make, probably. Yep. And then in the background you have one of the main villains of the Kingmaker adventure path.
Yeah, the Stag Lord.
Mm-hmm. You have Amiri and Lim, which hints that we're going to see the Iconics.
Yeah. Now the Amiri is 100% Amiri. The strange thing about Alain is that he's got a mug on his belt like Valeros.
No, not Alain. Lim. I'm not sure that is Alain up front. Lim is above the cleric. Lim is above the cleric.
That's not Lem's color scheme.
It's not?
Lem's not blonde. Lem's got white hair. At least on my screen, this halfling has blonde hair and a blue robe. He looks like he could be like a palette swapped Lem.
Mm.
I thought he was one of the 4 that you were saying was a brand new character.
But that doesn't look like a Lane up front either. But that is
totally...
I don't think so. He might be. All
right. The only one that 100% looks like one of the Iconics then is Amiri.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wonder if this Alain-ish and this Lem-ish are like, you could modify the Iconics, and then the other 3 could be telling us, or you can whole cloth a new character.
Mm-hmm. And, of course, there's a Pathfinder Goblin hidden in the corner.
Where? Didn't notice.
Bottom right corner.
Bottom right corner?
Of the big art.
Wait, is he behind the screen, the share screen?
I have it up on the sharing right now.
All right. Well, then, I will look at where we're sharing. Because I thought that this was actually one of the few new Pathfinder products that did not have any goblins referenced in, at least the beginning of it.
It's got a raging owlbear, but also there's a Pathfinder goblin hidden in the bottom right of the art.
All right. Well, there's an ad running right now on Twitch because I just refreshed it. All right.
But
oh wow.
Yep.
So that's outside of my screen. So I did not notice him. Yours goes a little wider than mine.
Yep. So, and then we have some screenshots of the game in play that looks very much like a Baldur's Gate-ish interface, which is, of course, exactly what they're going for. There is a lot of hints about what they're going for. It's one of the big keys they're selling here is it's going to have a companion-focused storyline. If you've been,
that's exciting.
What this means is if you've played Dragon Age or you've played Mass Effect or played Baldur's Gate, especially Mass Effect 2, the main story plotline happens through the course of the game, but a massive amount of the interest of the game takes place with the companions and learning their story and then doing quests that benefit them and sort of help develop that relationship you have with those companions in various directions. And basically that's what made Mass Effect 2 one of BioWare's best games they've ever made so compelling was their companion stories.
And it is a single-player game. I don't know if we mentioned that, but it is still going to be party-based, so it is still going to feel very much like Pathfinder because you're going to have a party of companions with you.
Right. And basically this seems to be the game everybody was hoping would be made, or at least the type of game everybody was hoping would be made when they announced that they were going to make video games and Obsidian was going to do it, because this is the sort of game that Obsidian makes. Therefore, it's very weird to find out that Obsidian's not the one making this. But not so weird because I know a lot about Obsidian lately. Okay.
Anything you can
I can share.
Enlighten us with?
Yeah, I can. This is not like secret Param insider information. Obsidian, since they've gotten the license, first they got the license. Then they released Pillars of Eternity, which was a crowdfunded game that was met with rave success, but they had to crowdfund it to fund it. So a lot of their audience that paid for it before development. So is not profit, is development. And then they moved into Tyranny. If they did an expansion pack for Path of Exile. Path of Exile is a fantastic game. You guys should go play it if you can. I fully recommend that game. It's amazing. Then they did Tyranny. Also amazing. But Tyranny advertised itself as, you are evil now, and here's how you play the evil bad. So a lot of people got turned off not wanting to play the evil bad, or not interested. We've heard the same story with Hell's Vengeance as being one of the lower selling APs, because it turns out most people like being the good guys in RPGs, and so evil stuff is a super niche market. The truth is, in Tyranny, you can totally be the good guy. The only thing is that the world is a very oppressive place, and you start the game working for the evil overlord who has taken over the world, and then from what you do from there is up to you. There is like a path where you become like the subversive rebel and then hero and all that jazz. You can be the good guy. So Tyranny doesn't have to. Most of the paths are you are the bad guy of various type of bad guys, but you can also be the good guy. And in Path of Exile, you can totally be the bad guy. In most of these games, going all the way back to Baldur's Gate, there's nothing that prevents you from being the bad guy. But Tyranny did not sell all that greatly. And Obsidian is unfortunately in bad financial situations because of this, according to earnings reports. So I really hope that they float, but between a bad financial situation, they also cut drastically back on the feature set of the card game, and I haven't really heard much about the card game since its launch. The iOS version of the card game, or I haven't heard much about that since its launch. And so basically all this added together means that this might be why they're not taking on a project for. First, they learned the same lesson that Paizo did. They've been bitten by the working under somebody else's IP before, and it biting them the rear end. Lisa Stevens, in one of our earlier interviews, talks about how it was so frustrating that she paid for all this art for Dragon and Dungeon magazine that she doesn't get to use anymore, even though she paid all the cost for it, because that was a licensed product. And all the licensed stuff they did for Star Wars and Dungeons and Dragons is just worthless. And Obsidian learned the same thing because they worked on Icewind Dale and Fallout and other IPs that those are gone. Those are done. They can't use it for. So I can see why they might have been hesitant to do more licensed work with a rising star like Pathfinder, for reasons of ending up in the same situation. And especially since Pillars of Eternity was so successful, they have their own fantasy IP that is popular enough that they could totally, especially since Pillars of Eternity evidently got its own role-playing game. So that was also a bit of a fracture there in the relationship. And card game, which also is a reason that they might not want to keep doing that. Now, officially, we don't know. There's been no official announcement about the Obsidian Paizo relationship, but this fact that another company is doing something that they had an exclusive license to do says something.
Now, Obsidian isn't completely removed from this project. We know that the narrative design is going to be by Chris Avallone. Now, Param, do you know what narrative design specifically entails?
No, I don't know what it means. I imagine it means he's going to be like a director on the storyline, if not the writer itself. But these projects have many, many writers, so...
All right, but do you know who Chris Avallone is?
No.
Oh, well, he is from Obsidian. He is, I believe, one of the co-founders. Let me pull up his Wikipedia page, because it's quite informative. And I came across it when I was trying to figure out just who Owlcat is, because in case anyone else didn't notice this, Owlcat's social media was about 2 hours old when the announcement came up. Like, there was no Owlcat games shortly before the announcement that Owlcat has the Pathfinder license.
Yeah, and this is a tiny, basically, startup company that was founded in 2006. This is going to be their first game. Now, they've got, the people that worked on this have some credentials in their background. Heroes of Might and Magic 5, which is a pretty good game. Rage of Mages 2, which is an okay game. Alloys Online, which is one of the better free-to-play MMOs to come out post-WoW. It's actually rather fantastically put together. Skyforge, which is a recent pseudo-MMO that was very well received on its launch. So they've got some chops in their background. So I'm hopeful that they can do a great job with this. It looks like they've been busy because the launch of this, it shows screenshots which with art in it, and so this isn't like eventually sometime we're hanging a banner up at Gen Con and maybe you'll see something in 2 years. It's like, oh look, they've got stuff now.
Well, a thing to note about the screenshot is that even though this is set in the same location as Pathfinder Online was to be set, and we'll talk about that in a minute, the screenshots are not just appropriated from Pathfinder Online. This isn't just, these were art assets that were developed for a project that's no longer viable. No, this is original art. It's new proof of concept. In fact, most of the art on the website, I mean, very little of it is reused from Pathfinder products, even though that's one of the values of being a license, that you can use existing art. Really, other than this group shot of the Pathfinder iconics, everything you see here seems newly developed for this game.
Right, and yeah, and yes, you're right. I was looking to see if the background behind Chris, the background,
maybe backgrounds.
from looks like it might be from a different book. But yeah, there's a lot of original art. It's talking about the kingdom building system, and that has new art in it. It's not just pulled from Kingmaker. There's a lot of character art and proof of concept of like armor design. And then of course there's the in-game footage that is fully rendered. That's a Pathfinder troll. That's what a Pathfinder troll looks like. So we know that they've got this is, and of course the big splash screen, that's a wholly new original piece that has nothing to do with anything. It's interesting that the logo itself is changed significantly from the default Pathfinder logo,
and I like it.
Yeah, it looks nice.
The Pathfinder logo has made slight changes. Like, it's definitely kept that sword for a P and like the general font, but like we've seen, it's taken a brownish tone, then a reddish tone. This is an all new gold tone with a green background, and I think it might be my favorite version of the Pathfinder logo.
Hold on.
What? So a couple of things we do know about Owlcat Games, because again, this is very new. According to the press release, Owlcat's a video game designer that was founded in 2016, part of a pilot initiative by My.com. And we've got information about My.com a little later. So the team is led by veteran game designers. And the first project unveiled is Pathfinder Kingmaker. So, like, literally, there's almost nothing to know about this company. In fact, the website is owlcatgames.com, but all it brings you to is information about Pathfinder Kingmaker. And any mention of the team is in relation to how the team is working on Pathfinder Kingmaker. Now, My.com, which apparently launched Owlcat Games, it is a global online service platform which focuses on North America and Europe with it comprises of a whole bunch of things, published award-winning online gaming experiences, including some mobile games. So what it seems to be is that My.com is the funds. It's the people that are like, we are just looking, it's a technology-based company that is looking for ways to make money in the technology realm. And Owlcat Games came with the prestige because there's a lot of credentials to the people that are a part of that. And they convinced My.com to bankroll this new company. And it seems they must have convinced them that the way they must have convinced them is by showing them Pathfinder Kingmaker. So the reason that we're probably seeing so much original development is because this was shown in 2016 to my.com to show them the potential for this new project of theirs. So what we can be confident about is that this company is 100% behind Pathfinder Kingmaker, because it seems like the company has no identity outside of Pathfinder Kingmaker and past projects. It's a veteran team of developers and people like art director, the studio head, technical directors. So it's all of the key components that make up a game studio. Each one of them has a lot of experience, and the fact that my.com seems like it's more about money than art. They are the ones that are going to make sure that they don't make the same mistakes that a lot of first-time game developers make. Like, they are making they're keeping an eye on their business decisions, while the company gets to make the artistic decisions that will hopefully attract an audience.
And it's also important to note that this isn't a Kickstarter announcement.
Yes.
This is, hey, we're making a game. It's going to come out. And that's not to say that they can't make a Kickstarter announcement, but that might happen. But I'm hoping it doesn't,
Fair.
because I have a lot of respect for Paizo and Pathfinder and Online. Let's just say the Kickstarter track record is not great.
Well, and specifically in the video game field.
Right. Yeah. Video game Kickstarter, not that great. We got some great side products out of that. I love Emerald Spire. But
so those were the things to be excited about. The things to maybe be worried about. The Kickstarter video game is something that's been a long-term project for excuse me, for forever. So going into it with a little bit of hesitation, I think is fair. But really, until we get to PaizoCon, when they've told us we're going to find out more information about this, and I believe we're going to get some major information at PaizoCon, I don't think we should be too skeptical. We just, can't be 100% on board with anything yet.
Right. I'm
but I can't help it. I'm excited.
I am hopeful and excited because these are the things these are the answers we wanted to hear about Pathfinder and video games. What every single person who plays Pathfinder wanted. Well, I'm not going to say every single person, but most people, when they say Pathfinder, a video game, great, it's going to be like Baldur's Gate, right? Because that's what people think of most fondly when they think of D&D video games. That's what they want. There's been a huge resurgence of Baldur's Gate style RPGs in the market lately. They have proven to be super successful. You have Path of Exile, you have Tyranny, you have Torment, Tides of Numeria, you have Divinity 2. You've got a lot of great products out there that shows that yes, there are people that want this. You've got the remasters of Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, Planescape Torment just came out. Hey, go get that one, it's awesome. This is what we wanted. This is what we have screamed we wanted. We want this. We want exactly this. Make this. And the answer has been, here's a card game. Here's an MMO. Which might be good things. The card game is actually pretty cool. I like it. That's nice. I kind of hope there would be more of it, but we are where we are. In the MMO...
We've gotten a lot of the card game. Or do you mean the app?
The app.
Okay.
Yeah. No, the card game's awesome, but then there's going to be more card game. I meant the card game video game.
Okay.
And it was pretty good, and I like it, and I don't regret the money I spent on that. I just kind of wished there was more of it. But there's no way around saying that the MMO has been a disappointment. One might even say failure.
I had assumed that it had quietly gone away, but every now and then I get an update email saying, here's a reason to still be hopeful.
Right. They seem to be trying really hard to make that work. And I'm very hopeful that eventually for a community there is something there for them to enjoy, but it definitely isn't what I don't believe this is what they hoped it would have been. I definitely don't believe this is what the people who backed it hoped this would have become. And that's the shadow that's always going to hang over anything Paizo does in the video game space until they have a real success story, and I'm hoping this is that real success story. But until then, we've got a lot of things that we didn't quite want, as opposed to the thing we really wanted.
I am going to bring up, because a lot of people have been saying, like, didn't they try this with Pathfinder Online? So the they is the important distinction here. They did Pathfinder Online as in Paizo did it. They started a whole new company, got into the MMO space as the MMO space was falling apart. And so it was their first video game, which was an MMO, when the market was telling them we no longer want MMOs. Right. So it was just kind of a real uphill battle. It was a straight uphill battle. The difference here is that the they is a licensor. Right. And so Paizo can still focus on the stuff that makes Paizo great. In fact, Paizo is probably going to be focusing, let's say, about 70% on Starfinder. No, then that leaves only 30% for Pathfinder. That's not big enough. 60% Starfinder, 40% Pathfinder?
We don't know until Starfinder happens.
Fair enough. But what we do know is that they only have to pay attention to this license in the same way they're dealing with any of their other licenses. Mm-hmm. This is not a Paizo project. This is a Paizo licensed to someone else to do the work project. And the people that they have licensed to are the right people to license this job to.
This is probably not to say that they're not going to be involved, that Paizo is licensed to several things, and they are always heavily involved in the creation of those things. But
they licensed the comics to Dynamite, and then they started writing them.
Yeah, that's crazy. But in a good way. It's been the only consistent fantasy comic being produced in recent memory. I mean, seriously, no other fantasy comic in recent times has made it this far. Great. I mean, you've got Rat Queens and Skull Kickers, and Skull Kickers kind of cheats a little bit, but I guess it is a pure fantasy.
Well, Skull Kickers is done now, too.
Yeah, Skull Kickers is done, but it lasted a good long while.
Yes.
And a licensed fantasy art comic.
Does Lumberjanes count?
Maybe, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There's some great ones. But this is a licensed fantasy comic book. The track record for these are usually they don't hit issue 12. They usually don't hit issue 3. And we were talking about Pathfinder Comics was hitting issue 60. So, great. But, hang on. I'm trying to temper my excitement for this to exist with the very real problems that have happened in the past of trying to make this happen. So I'm hoping that this is the success story. This is when we finally get what we were asking for. And you're right. They're not. And let's be completely honest here. There's no way that that was a financially good situation with the amount of investment Paizo made monetarily into Goblin Works. Especially given what happened. That had to have hurt financially. If this is a licensed product, if it goes belly up, a lot less risk there.
Mm-hmm. All right, Param. We're getting a little late, but it is the last episode before PaizoCon.
Mm-hmm.
So I do at least want to bring up that I'm going to PaizoCon, and I'm very excited.
PaizoCon! I mean, you're going to PaizoCon, very exciting. But what I'm really interested in is the seminars and the post-PaizoCon.
Yes. So going into it, I thought that the most exciting seminars were going to be Starfinder seminars, because we're going to get a little more information, and I think that by now we've gotten enough details about what's coming at Gen Con, and there's probably enough of an idea of how successful Starfinder will be that we'll get our first inklings of the follow-up projects beyond the initial projection of what Starfinder is going to be. Mm-hmm. So we know all about all the products up until Gen Con and a trickling afterwards. I think we're going to see some information about Starfinder 2018.
Yep. I hope so.
Which I mentioned to Tim that I had another question about the future. I was going to ask him Wayfinder and Starfinder. So anyway, in case anyone was curious what that segue was alluding to. Now, the other thing I was excited about was seminars that are telling us that, yes, they're focusing on Starfinder, but here's things to get excited about Pathfinder. Now, I thought that was going to be mostly the role-playing game and maybe a little bit about the card game. But clearly, this video game is going to be the seminar that everyone is going to be trying to get into. Actually, I don't even know if it's going to be a seminar. It might just be at the banquet.
Ooh.
I know.
They have to have something. There has to be something that they're going to announce or show off.
Right. Well, last year... Oh, there we go. Okay, so there is officially, just adding it to my schedule now, max 75 people to attend this. Pathfinder Kingmaker CRPG is Saturday morning, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. So
you better get in that one.
I just got in there, Pam. So this must have just been added to the schedule,
Right.
because last year when Starfinder was announced at the banquet, there was a seminar the next day that was just called Outer Worlds, or anyway, it was just implying it was a Pathfinder space seminar, and that was just the stealth way of them putting a Starfinder seminar in there. I wasn't sure if there was going to be a stealth seminar about the Pathfinder Kingmaker CRPG. Apparently not. It's not stealth at all. It's completely on the schedule. Get in there now, because there's only 50 slots left, and I have a feeling they're going to go as soon as people realize that this is up there. So we're going to get information there, and I have a feeling we're going to get more information at the banquet as well. At least the banquet is probably going to be more visual, whereas the seminar is going to be an info dump. And I'm going to predict they have about 5 minutes at the end for questions, even though they probably intend about half of the seminar to be for questions. That's my prediction.
It will be awesome. I hope. And of course, this means I'm going to have to. I'm just now putting the schedule together for Gen Con and seeing what I'm going to be covering, what we're going to need volunteers to cover. And now, of course, that my priority list has changed again. I thought I was basically going to be a Starfinder machine this year, but it looks like I'm going to have something else very important to talk about too. Oh goodness! Oh.
Hey, Tim's in chat, by the way, and he
hey,
asked the question that Wayfinder won't do Starfinder until at least after the first AP. Paizo needs to create the campaign setting enough to write it.
Right.
To it.
That's a good point. There's not enough there yet.
I knew Tim would have had an answer, and he did.
Thank you, Tim. All right. Well, if those how will people get in touch with you at PaizoCon?
I will be the one with the baby.
Oh yeah.
So I've got. I mean, people, I think, know what I look like generally, and if they don't, they know my voice. So listen for me if you can't see me.
Listen to him if you can't see him. Look for Scarlet if you can't find him. Also, if all else fails, just look up. He's tall.
I am tall, but not mythically tall. I'm like 6'2" at tops. I'm broad, though. I'm tall and broad, which gives a much larger presence than I think people... Then, like, my measurements don't equal my presence. But yeah, otherwise, I don't know. No, I have no idea how people are going to find me, other than I'll be the guy running around at around the change of every hour to make sure that I get into the seminar, check the recorders to make sure they're okay, and then step out. I've got a very open schedule this year on purpose, because I don't know exactly how Tina and Scarlett are going to mesh into the whole thing. So I plan on doing as many of the open activities as I can get into, and I do have one lottery game that I got into that I'm excited enough about that I'll bring attention to. It's Gallows of Madness, run by Amanda Hammond-Coons. So I've been aware of Amanda as a writer for a while now, because her name has shown up on a fair number of products that I've enjoyed. But it's only in the last, actually basically since she started working on Starfinder stuff, that her name has been specifically attached to what she's been writing, so I'm able to identify exactly what she writes. And she is a talented writer. She has become one of the people that now I am very excited when I see her name attached to things. And so when I was signing up for lottery games, I had two objectives. One, get into a Starfinder preview game, which I didn't get into, but I have a feeling there's going to be at least one open Starfinder preview thing that I am going to wait in line to get in on. And the other one was to get in a game that is GM'd by Amanda, and that's one of the games I got. So
Sweet.
I'm excited about that.
Excellent.
All right, yeah, I think it's about time we wrap things up, Param. Anything on PaizoCon? Anything that you think I should keep an eye open for?
Ooh, I keep an eye open to see what is going on in the... there's been a lot of other Pathfinder licensees happening. We've got Fantasy Grounds, we've got whatever's happening with Roll20, we have whatever's happening with Sirenscape and their continued awesomeness. Of course, find out the Sirenscape, whatever they're doing with Starfinder. Yep. Lots of stuff. So there's right now it looks like they're signing a lot of papers again, and it might be about time to have a Pathfinder the Flamethrower episode sometime soon.
You know what? Paizo has someone that's in charge of licensing, and we have never had him on the show, and I fail to remember his name.
Ooh.
I'm going to talk to him and see if he's interested in joining us, or if that's also a very business side of things job. So I don't know if he would rather not be divulging trade secrets and whatnot. But it's also it compares to what I do for Blind Ferret, so it would actually be a interview I'm extremely interested in doing. Ooh. So that's something to keep in mind for the near future. How about this, Param? In the past, I have had some sit-down interviews at PaizoCon, but the last couple of years, I just did seminar recordings, and no one seems to miss the sit-down interviews. But if I did a sit-down interview or two, who would you like me to have a sit-down interview with?
We haven't had Lisa on the show in a while, so I would like.
We are going to have Lisa on the show sometime this year, because it's too significant of a year for Paizo. I mean, obviously, if she's available and is willing to come on the show again,
right.
But I definitely intend to invite Lisa back on the show. It's just always felt like an end of the year kind of thing to me.
Well, it's we definitely the story has evolved, and I want to see. The last time we talked, Pathfinder was a very different place, and I would like to see, now that Pathfinder is completely changed, the strategy has changed. There's a new reality of being second place again. Probably second place forever. Hope so.
It might become third place to Starfinder, at least when Starfinder first launches.
Well,
it's possible.
I'm lumping.
Oh, you're talking about Paizo?
I'm lumping, and until I see proven otherwise, Starfinder and Pathfinder is probably going to remain linked in my mind, because Starfinder is just Pathfinder in space, and as long as that is a true statement, I will not separate those two in my brain.
But I suspect, because you were talking about number 2, I was thinking of it as the ICV2 rankings.
Right.
And I think ICV2 is going to count those as two separate properties.
They probably will, yeah. But, yeah, totally. Yeah, that will be the truth, because the age system is tracked separately, etc., etc. Okay, but I'm out of things.
Oh, Justin Sluter in chat tells me Mike Kenway. That's the name of the director of licensing. Yes, that sounds about right.
Excellent. All right. So, be right back to wrap things up.
Sounds good.
Wrap-ups and shoutouts. Wrap-ups and shoutouts. Wrap-ups. Wrap-ups and shoutouts.
And we're back.
Thank you for joining us for episode 157 of No Direction, the Pathfinder News Reviews and Interviews podcast. Before we go, we'd like to bring your attention to some interesting things that might be interesting to us, that might be of interest to you as a Pathfinder fan, or a fan of whatever. But before we do that, Param, I do want to bring your attention to something that amuses me about the framing in Twitch. So after Tim left the chat and it just became a 2-up, so I've got a little portion of your frame in my frame.
I keep
finding
finding
it's just the Dungeons and Dragons logo. So
but it's the 3.5 logo.
Okay, good. Well, it amused me that Dungeons and Dragons had crept onto my side of the screen.
No,
yes, totally valid. It's the 3.5 logo.
Yeah, that sign means a lot to me, because it's the sign that WotC sent when 3.5 launched to the game stores. You can't easily get one of those things unless you worked at a game store, and I worked at a game store, and ran a game store, and so this was one of my favorite things to see hanging above on the ceiling and illuminated. And awesome. This thing actually still functions. It lights up and stuff. I just don't have it plugged in. Yeah, like the whole sword gets an outline, and like the Dungeons and Dragons gets outlined in red, and it's really impressive.
Cool. Any reason it didn't end up in the game shed?
Because that is a piece of promotional material, and all the art in the game shed is original art. Is original art that isn't branded. It's not logos, it's not posters, it's not advertising material. It's stuff I've commissioned or art I really, really love and have original sketches of, or paid for prints to the artists because, you know, the pieces were really awesome, or were gifts. But it's not for, because I wanted to keep the game room somewhat in character, there's no advertisement in there.
All right, that makes sense. On to the actual shoutouts?
On to the actual shoutouts.
All right, I don't have any gaming shoutouts today, but fans of the Private Sanctuary, especially fans of the Private Sanctuary that go way back, will remember that Matt Belanger was the second full-time co-host of the show after Jay left and before Kathy joined. And he is running a fundraiser for, there we go, it's the RBC Race for the Kids event to support mental health programs at CHEO. So if you go to if you go to my Facebook page, or I'll share it on the No Direction page, you'll find a link there. His goal is $500. It's pretty modest. I think we can blow that goal up. So if at any time when Matt was a co-host, or if any of the stories I've ever told about Matt at the gaming table have amused you, throw Matt, $10, $15 if you can afford it. It's for a good cause, and Matt did a lot for the network and hasn't really gotten any. He didn't get anything out of it. It's not like he was trying to start a game career or anything. He was just doing it out of a love for this game and a willingness to talk about it. Now, my other Kickstarter, my other shout out is a Kickstarter, and it is in a very different direction.
Oh,
it's
what the world
it's a
did you
Kickstarter
do
for a horror puppet movie that I compared to like Gremlins meets Evil Dead 2. It's called We Are, as in the letter R, Animals. It is a Swedish film, and just when you get a chance, go to this Kickstarter campaign and watch the video, because the video is the director and two of the puppets pitching to an investor the movie, and they could only afford a voice actor for one of the puppets, so the other one is just using a talk-in, like a text and talk. If the movie is half as funny as this 5-minute short film is, it's definitely going to be worth any amount of money that you are willing to donate to this. I haven't decided what I'm going to donate yet. There is an option to donate quite a bit of money, but it's quite a bit of SEK dollars, which is... Anyway, so the goal is for 2,250,000 SEK, S-E-K, and that translates to 350,000 Canadian. So I'm definitely going to have to do some homework into the conversion rate before I actually make a donation. But one of them is to voice one of the pets. And man, I have an eye on that. There's also, if you are a fan of your own pet, there is a level that gets your pet made into one of the puppets in the movie.
This seems of the creepy
it's
variety
absolutely
that
bonkers, but I love it so much.
Oof, okay. Oh boy.
I know, it's completely outside of the realm of stuff we usually talk about, but I do still have a warm place in my heart for kitschy horror, and I definitely have a warm place in my heart for weird things that walk the line of taking themselves too seriously and not taking themselves seriously at all. So this happens to intersect a lot of my interests that I don't talk about too often on the podcast.
All right. One of the things I wanted to shout out to is to Sophie LaBelle's Assigned Mail webcomic series. And Assigned Mail is a webcomic about primarily about trans youth and the realities of growing up as a trans individual, but she also tackles other aspects of queerness and a lot of those experiences, especially from a youth point of view. The comic is very funny, very cute. I enjoy reading it a lot. It especially is a good comic to read if you have trans friends or family and you want to know some of the basics of relating to it, and the do's and don'ts, and basically the realities of the situation. And unfortunately, one of the reasons I decided that this was the week I'm shouting out to it is that she is under attack from the same groups that we complain about constantly. They've taken down the main website. There's a lot of horrible badness happening right now, and she could probably use some positive support right now. So hey, go check out her comic. Tell her how much it's awesome. Some kind messages will go a very long way right now.
Yeah, she's actually a fellow Montrealer. This is something I only found out after seeing some familiar landmarks in the background of some of her comics. So this hits close to home. It's never cool to find out that someone that's within your community is getting tacked, and her Facebook page is down, and you said her website's down. I didn't even realize that was also, like, I'm not even too sure how someone would be able to do that, but it's infuriating. And it's just, like, what is the point?
I don't know. I don't know. Something about this comic has attracted the vitriol and hatred that others in the community hasn't seen. This is beyond. None of this is normal. It's never normal. It's never good. But she has received a level of hatred and adverse attack that I have not seen on that scale. It's a constant. It seems to be. I think it's just something about acknowledging in a positive light that youth queerness is a thing and should be supported. And I think that has that might be the biggest trigger to some of these people that are trying to basically tear her down. And I don't know, but hey.
Well, she covers the topics really intelligently. She doesn't mind challenging perceptions. She's English second language, but you would not know it from her writing. She is an extremely talented writer, even in English, even in not her mother tongue. She does the art and the writing, and she is as skilled at both, which is a rare talent. So, yeah, find the way that you can support her, because if her main website is down right now, I don't know if she gets any ad revenue from her old website, which is what you linked to there, Param, her Tumblr. But you can buy her books somewhere.
Yeah, I've bought it. I've bought one of them, and I'm probably going to buy the rest. She's very good. It's a very good comic.
Yeah. So when we figure out how you can still buy the books, because I'm not sure if they're on Amazon or if they're just privately sold from her own web store.
I think it's Patreon and Etsy.
Okay. We will share some links on our Facebook page to make sure that people can get their hands on the stuff and support her any way they can.
Mm-hmm. Will do.
Her Patreon's still up?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah. All right. What's
Let's wrap things up by talking about what happened on the network this week.
Oh, yes, the network this week. Let me scroll on back here. For those of you who do not know, I feel very sorry for you all, because No Direction is not just this amazing podcast that we love to produce every other week. It is also a network of some of the best writing about Pathfinder and the gaming community to be read on the internet. We are so fortunate to be working with some amazing writers on our network, and they provide content every single day at nodirectionpodcast.com. So, what articles came out since the last time you heard from us? Well, let's start with Inspire Confidence by Monica Marlowe. Led us off with Not All Men, which is again exploring the relationship of gaming and gender relations. She talks about the Not All Men hashtag and the movement, and why this has become an issue that is very commonly brought up. It's a long read. It's a good read. Get in there and check it out. Next up,
I also think it's a read that everyone will come in with some assumptions about it, and she covers probably what you're assuming and a lot of different angles on it.
Yeah, it is not this is not the article you've read 1,000 times already. Okay, Monstrous Physique, Luis Loza. Remember how we were geeking about the were insects? He brings us the were beetle, and I like the were beetle.
And I like the were beetle too. He used art from Bloody Roar 3, so I don't know exactly how long he's had this one in the oven.
Oh man, I can't even. Bloody Roar, man, that's reaching back. All right, so go check out this Werebeetle. It's what you see on the cover. It's great. He's got a good write-up for it. Go check it out. Then, next up, Alex Agunas, in his iconic design, says, "Can't catch this ratfolk," in which he builds a ratfolk that it teleports and is hard as heck to hit and grab. This thing bounces around combat like a pinball. This is a fun little build to see. Again, check it out. It's a great little build in his iconic design series, which is always a fun read. Okay.
Yeah, this is an update to a previous, because he's done the teleporting builds before. This is an update using a lot of new ways that you can implement those old, I guess they're old now. They're from, I believe, Ultimate Combat, maybe Ultimate Magic.
Oh, wow. That's
basically
about
the
as old as
Nightcrawler
it gets.
feats and Nightcrawler spells.
Next up is James Ballard's Code Switch blog, "If a Boat is Leaving from Absalom at 9 a.m., which is a great title, but what it's about is globalism, more importantly, economic globalism, and what that means, what that could mean for a fantasy world, because this is an issue that shapes a lot of what the reality of living in different places and parts and communities across the world is. And if you're going to be doing economic models in Galarian, it's a great read to think about what the implications are of that, not just to the nation, but to the people living in these nations. Go check it out. Ryan, you do the next one, because it's your article in Keyword Design.
Yes, the keyword this week was commute, and I went into it not wanting every option to be a taxiing option, and I think I went too far in that direction, because just about every option is how to turn your character into Hodor. So I've got a backpack for carrying people around. I've got a magic item that's basically a bag of holding for people. The feat is Mount Ally. So if you remember in the Transformers animated movie, when they're on the junk planet and the Junkyons are motorcycles that turn into robots and back and forth, at one point a Junkion's riding a Junkion in robot mode, and then in vehicle mode, and then they swap, and then the other one's the motorcycle now, and he jumps on his back and turns back the other way. This is that feat. It's a teamwork feat that lets you jump on your friend's back and charge around. I call out that I specifically think this would make a great feat for a goblin counter, but that's not like, there's no racial limitation. Anyone can make a party that just jumps on each other's backs and runs around. For whatever reason, you would do that.
Next.
Oh, and then I kind of cheated with the class option, because I found out that commute comes, like the mute part of commute comes from the same Latin origin as mutate. And so the solventist is an alchemist that shares mutagen and shares his extracts, which is a limitation that the alchemist usually can't have. And actually, I'm surprised that archetype doesn't already exist.
Next up is Anthony Lee's Behind the Screens, Rolling with the Dice. His article goes into, okay, first, it's obvious that we, as GMs, when we roll our dice, don't always have to use the result as lands behind the screen. The ultimate rule zero of RPGs. Even Gary Gygax is famous as saying that a GM's dice only rolls his dice to hear the sounds, to hear the sound they make. I probably butchered that quote, but it is one of his quotes. He said that in some form.
I don't think I've ever heard that one. I'm going to look up the exact quote, because that's clever.
But using the dice and not changing them and going with, because a lot of is something to explore, because a lot of fantasy, especially in the post George R.R. Martin fantasy world, and a lot of fiction is about failure and dealing with failure and how that changes a story in much more interesting ways than always succeeding. It's the reason that Superman's a very hard thing to sell a movie about, or at least lately. So go and read that article. It's for GMs on how to handle just using the dice as they roll and accepting what happens either way. Next up is The Noble Manor from Lewis Lowe's Wandering Monsters blog. We get a full 2-story map of a manor that he's put together for us, as well as a bunch of encounters, including the one that kind of creeped me out the most, the Cannibal Courtier. Ew.
Well, because if you're going to have just a manor house, it can't be exactly as meets the eye.
Of course not, but crazy. Ooh. Good job, Lewis, on freaking me out there. It's going to work. Okay, then Alex, in his guidance, is top 7 commonly forgotten rules in Pathfinder. Okay. Again, he goes over some of the more obscure rules, and it's not the ones I thought they would be, because this is an article type that gets written a lot. But he actually came up with 7 rules that are pretty much often forgotten, and I wish more people knew about. Some examples of them are, your alchemist bombs don't super crit. I did not know that. I don't play with a lot of alchemists. The flying rules are brutal. I did know that.
I know, yes.
Oh my gosh, the flying rules in Pathfinder are crazy. Some spells are longer than you think. Yes, they are. And it would be almost like somebody should create an index card system to make sure you can keep track of this sort of thing. Anyway, there's a lot more on here. I don't want to just spoil this whole thing, but go ahead and read it. You will do yourself a favor by reading this article and the exact answers to these questions.
But this article does come with a warning. So any website that runs a blog will tell you that listicles, so articles that are lists and have a number in the title, get way more traffic for some unknown reason.
Right.
This exactly proved true with this article. It's got more comments than average, and it got a ton of shares and likes on Facebook. So if you like Pathfinder listicles, we could become a Pathfinder listicle site.
Yeah.
But if you don't, make an effort to also share and like his next guidance article, just for the sake of saying that you're going to prove this common, well, I was going to say misconception, but it's 100% accurate, that this type of article just gets more clicks.
Yeah,
Not that we do it for the clicks. There's no ads on the site, but we do like the feedback. And if that's the only article that gets feedback, that's just what we're going to be drawn to. So, you've been warned, people that don't like listicles.
Next up, Andrew Marlowe's Burst of Insight. He's returning to his maze campaign setting again, which is no surprise and a delight. Where this time he's talking about the core rules of the game and changing them to suit your world. Everything from character creation to how the skill system works. There's a lot of neat thoughts about alternate rule systems and how to twist the D20 system, the OGL system. Well, I'm still allowed to call it the D20 system, darn it. I'm not a publisher.
Yes.
Yes. How to twist the D20 system in new and unique ways. So there was some things in here that even I was like, interesting idea there. So go check it out. If you're again, changing the basic rules of a game help change the flavor of the game. Everything about a role-playing game affects how it plays at the table and how people feel about it when they're playing it. It's the reason that we all just don't play GURPS for all of the future time immemorial. Alright, next up, blood-sucking rules lawyers from the Dova Queen. Ryan, do you want to chime in on this one?
Sure. So the question is about rules lawyers, and specifically that there's a rules lawyer at this person's table, and they just want to know how to deal with them, especially when they are confidently quoting a rule wrong. And as is kind of the trademark of this article, she doesn't just say like, well, here's how you handle that person's behavior, and she doesn't just call the intentions of the questioner into question, the person asking the question into question. She goes into the psychology of it. She reminds you that they are playing this for a reason. They are playing that style. Something about rules lawyering makes them feel more comfortable. And she goes into depth about, yes, that is the reality of it, but also it's not a reality that you just have to suffer through. And then she gives some advice on how, as the player, you can deal with it, how as the GM you can deal with it. And her summary has another great turn of phrase, but it's like the last sentence of the article, so I'm not going to spoil it this time. But I love that her advice is as smart as it is well written. Like, these are fun articles to read, and they are perfectly insightful.
Yes, a very great read. I'm so glad that she's come onto the network. Yes, yes. All right, and finally, we have this press release that might interest you guys. It has something to do with Pathfinder Kingmaker and all the official details we have so far. You might want to go check that out. Maybe.
Yeah.
Just maybe a little bit. We still do.
We covered
have
a lot of
news
it in the podcast, but we also covered it all over the place because we wanted to talk about everything at the same time. So if you want to just read over a summary of what we talked about in a less chaotic order, the press release is there for you. And definitely keep a watch on the network, because when I start posting the PaizoCon coverage, normally I do the banquet first and then everything else in chronological order. But last year I did banquet and Starfinder first and then chronological. I'm going to do the same thing with Kingmaker. It'll be banquet, Kingmaker, and then everything else chronological, because if I then make another exception because if there's other big news, no, I don't want to start judging things based on their value. It'll be Kingmaker because we know that's the most important thing and we have so little information about, and then chronological.
All right, gang. That's it.
Yeah, our next episode is going to be reviewing PaizoCon and everything we've learned about it. So if you're going to PaizoCon, check me out. It's not a very large convention in that you will be able to speak to everyone that's there if you put in the effort, and I will definitely be more than happy to speak to anybody, even if I've got a 2-year-old doing flips off of me like I'm a tree. And I'm going to be in a lot of the open play areas, so come and find me. And if you are at all interested in helping out by providing a recorder, or just are willing to keep an eye on the recorders to make sure that batteries are okay and memory cards are not full, give me a PM on our Facebook page, or if we're friends on Facebook, feel free to just PM me on my personal account. So until next time, I'm Ryan Costello.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
And no, I was going to say you're always welcome to our private sanctuary.
Quit doing
and while
that!
That may be true, Param. If you want to find the path, you need no direction.